everybody, and welcome to Northernlion's little preview of a game called Battleborn, upcoming shooter slash MOBA slash RPG from Gearbox and 2K Games. Some of you may know that at the start of October, or the first week of October, I was sent to San Francisco to cover a mysterious game. This is it. As a note, of course, full disclosure, 2K did pay for my flight both ways, but I was in and out the same day, so there was no hotel or anything like that. I should tell you that also there is a closed technical test for this game going on literally right now, so you can sign up. If you just Google Battleborn closed technical test, you might have a chance to get in for yourself and check out the game and play against other people online. When we were there, we played the game for literally 4 or 5 hours, so we got a chance to check out a bunch of different stuff. Here you're going to see a multiplayer mode, but we did also play the single player game for a little bit, and we did also play a couple of different multiplayer modes. This one is going to be Capture, which is basically like a control points game. I think it's the easiest to kind of ascertain what's going on while you're watching it, but there's also Meltdown, which is a little bit more MOBA-like than what you're going to be seeing here, and I'll talk about that as we get going here. So what the heck is Battleborn? It is a multiplayer-focused, although not multiplayer-exclusive, first-person shooter with RPG elements is probably the easiest way to describe it. It's a lot like Borderlands on a mechanical standpoint. I think the easiest way to describe it is if you took Borderlands and just stripped out all of the loot, which initially sounds like a terrible thing. I can, understand you might be thinking that, but let me finish here. And instead you replace it with really distinct character classes. So instead of having 4 different character classes, you have maybe 16 or even more than that. And also, instead of having persistent levels that happen over the course of an entire game, it's got much more of almost like a MOBA style interface to it, or a MOBA style wrapping, if you will. What that means is that, every single match is self-contained. You're going to level up from, level 1 to level wherever the game ends over the course of a single match, and then you're going to reset back to level 1 when you go to the next mission or the next multiplayer match. And that's true in single player as well. Those are all self-contained as well, which is a little bit jarring the first time you play it, but it's actually kind of an interesting and relatively unique way to handle a single player game here. But I'm going to talk mostly about the multiplayer here. We did play the single player a little bit, and it kind of strikes me as a lot like Borderlands. If you have friends, it's going to be fun with them. If you have strangers, it could still be fun, but it's probably going to be less fun than if you were playing with friends. At least that was the experience that I had at the event. And if you're playing it through by yourself, probably a little bit less engaging than playing the multiplayer modes. But I will say that it does have a single player mode, and they definitely in the trailers and stuff that we watched, they were kind of pushing that. I think maybe they learned a lesson, and I'm not saying, haha, told you so, but from Evolve, they have made the single player campaign something that is definitely a back of the box sort of thing. So in Conquest mode, basically we're trying to get to 1,000 points before our enemies get to 1,000 points. And I'm on the green team here, and I spent the whole day playing as Maiko. And it might be Miko, but I'm going to assume that it's Maiko because it's a mushroom. So there's the Maiko prefix for mushroom. Just ignore this blooping in the background here. I had the option to play many different characters, but I like to play this character as a support character. You can see the level up interface there, and I kind of got used to it. So the way that this character works is basically that you can see those throwing daggers. Those are my primary attack. I also have a heal beam as my secondary attack, and then I have that fungal grenade that you can see there. Every character has, 4 different abilities. Their primary attack, their secondary attack, and then 2 different abilities that they can use and level up as the game goes on. You'll see that in the update tree or the experience tree as we get going. And then also an ultimate, which you unlock, I believe, at level 5, as opposed to something like level 7 or level 6 from other MOBAs. Just to keep it a little bit different, I suppose. So this is my healing beam, and we've leveled up with a choice to give that extra healing for us as well, which I have done to make myself more of a pure support. But you can spec yourself to be a little bit, at least with this character, a little bit more of a I guess an aggressive support or a ganker. I don't want to necessarily put it exclusively in MOBA terms, but you get the idea there. And I chose this game, I want you to know, specifically because we did really well. And I think that's my right as a content creator to show myself in the best light possible. The throwing knives do minimal damage, but they do have a little bit of homing, not much, but and maybe it's more accurate to call it like auto-aim, because it's otherwise kind of hard to actually land them. And then we have that fungal grenade that slows enemies and also does damage in an area of effect, but also you can level up and choose to give it a stun once you get to level 6 or level 7, as we'll see when we play here, which can actually make you really valuable. If you stun someone, it is like playing Dota or something like that. They are going to be out, and we actually got a kill there, which we can taunt and I think get more like in-game currency that we can use to upgrade our turrets and stuff here, but I didn't do that. And finally, we have an ultimate, which we may or may not see. It's a mushroom that we can plump down, and then it gives our enemies damage over time within the mushroom, and it heals our teammates a lot. So it's basically just like a support tower that we can throw down. Let's talk a little bit more about the mechanics that we have going on here. I'm going to talk about my impressions, because this match that we played here is actually relatively short, but I think it does a pretty good job of showing you what Battleborn is about without necessarily subjecting you to a 40-minute match of Meltdown or something like that, which we did have. That's the more MOBA-y kind of side. It really does play a lot like something like Borderlands meets something like Smite. You know, it has that Smite, everything is a skill shot sort of thing going on with it, but it also has a serious Borderlands element, not surprising coming from Gearbox, obviously, but it has like a lighthearted tone and kind of lighthearted in the face of very serious repercussions and stuff like that. That you've come to expect, and of course, you know, there's some humor in that as well, as you might be expecting. And honestly, I have to say, obviously, you know, my full disclosure out there in the beginning, I was not paid to go to the event, but the event was, my travel to the event was paid for. I actually had a really good time playing the multiplayer. I played Battleborn at PAX East about, sorry, that was PAX Prime, like 2 months in advance of this event. And to be honest with you, I was a little bit underwhelmed with the single-player co-op that I played at PAX Prime. I kind of was like, I can see what they're going for. It feels like a bit of a tweaked Borderlands, and I'm not sure that I kind of value the loot element more than this kind of unique gimmick of, you know, starting from anew every single mission that you do. Even though it is cool to have kind of like set character customization instead of mostly being customized by the loot that you get in the equipment. But the multiplayer mode, I wouldn't say I've done a 180, but maybe I've done like a 135. The multiplayer is actually a lot of fun, and it reminds me a little bit of Loadout as well. But one of the things that was kind of, I don't want to say annoying about Loadout, but negative about Loadout was it was a little bit generic, and this game actually oozes a little bit more character than that. So I think it's like a more compelling version of Loadout, especially in the control points mode, which is kind of like your standard, one of your standard shooter modes. Meltdown has a little bit more of a Monday Night Combat thing going on, which is also interesting, but that carries the MOBA salt with it. I felt myself getting a little salty as I watched like my opponents have like a pocket medic basically that heals their carry, and their carry never dies and then just balls out of control and destroys us, you know, half an hour into the game. I do think that this game is going to be appealing to people who like games like Smite in particular. You know, I know the MOBA genre is entrenched. You know, you play what you want to play, and that's what you stick with because you've already invested like 1,000 hours into it. But if you're into something like Smite, I think this is the kind of thing that could be a lot of fun to play with your friends. The single player, a little bit more like, I don't want to say rote, because that comes across as a little offensive, but it has the same kind of flow to it as something like Borderlands. You know, you walk into an area, there's waves of enemies, everyone drops their abilities, you know, you look at your teammates, make sure they're doing okay, you buff them or heal them if you can, and if you're the DPS class, you just, you know, go to town. And then you wait for your cooldowns to come back, you walk into the next area, and rinse and repeat until you get to a boss. It's not necessarily bad, but maybe like a little bit simplistic might be the way that I would choose to describe it. But the multiplayer seems like it's got the potential to be there. I'm not totally sure if I'm 100% all in for launch. That was our win, by the way there. But I might be, and you know, rather than have this just be like a super short video, give me a moment here. I'll do some editing on the fly, and I'll try to put in a little bit of single-player gameplay for you here, so you can get a feel for how that goes. Now, I warn you, it might be a little bit loud right off the... Oh my god! Okay, no, I have solved that problem. So this is going to be us playing a little bit of the single player. Again, I captured like maybe 4.5 hours of footage almost from the event, and it plays really well. It looks good. It plays at a reasonable frame rate. It felt like 60 FPS, but it didn't have an FPS counter actually there. It looks smooth, which I guess is probably more important to most people than what the actual number on it is. You can even, like from an interface perspective, this is Borderlands, like even down to what the objective markers look like. And that's not a bad thing. It's like Borderlands with the Diablo part taken out and instead kind of like Monday Night Combat overlaid over top, which is cool. I'm trying to think of what else I wanted to say here as we do this. There are some elements, instead of just being mostly positive, and I think I have been mostly positive on the game from what I played at the event, I would like to talk about some potential concerns. One that I have is that, you know, compared to other 2K published games from the past year or so, namely I'm thinking of Evolve, it's a little bit less outside of the box. Like, Evolve had that cool kind of like asymmetrical multiplayer almost like horror thing going for it. And I know that Evolve is a controversial and contentious game for its own reasons, but I quite liked it in spite of, some of the elements that people did find, I don't want to say unsavory, but you know what I mean. Some of the elements that people found contentious or controversial, let's put it that way. This plays a lot more just kind of like a run-and-gun shooter with a little bit of a thin layer of strategy, at least in single-player, overlaid on top. That being said, it does feel mechanically strong, and the most important thing, I guess, is that, when your team is in sync with one another, it's fun to play, and it's very satisfying when you guys are firing on all cylinders. And that's another concern that I have, in a way, is like a benefit couched in a detriment, is that I wonder if there's going to be much of a compelling reason to play this from a single-player standpoint. Not necessarily meant as a negative, but, how many people out there played Borderlands through by themselves, I guess is what I'm trying to say. The game has enough, that's my ultimate there, by the way. So we can just stand in that and basically, I wouldn't say we're unkillable, but we're pretty close. But it has some elements of that, I think, that it's going to be hard to justify playing it in single player, but I do think it's a positive that you can. That they didn't just say, well, this is a game that's co-op focused, so we don't have, anything in there for people who are playing by themselves. If you really want to, you do have the opportunity to do so. But I do think that your mileage, from what I played, will probably vary based on that. And it'll probably vary based on how much you like this formula to begin with. It's not really my favorite, the Borderlands kind of style is not really my favorite to begin with, but I did have a really good time playing through most of the pre-sequel with Nick, so I could see myself, if other, colleagues of mine got into this, I could see myself playing it with them. The other thing, and this is a little bit uncertain, is it does seem to have the foundation for Counter-Strike Global Offensive style microtransactions, and if this ends up being factually incorrect, I apologize for it. I didn't get clarification at the event, but there is the foundation in the game for what I would basically refer to as crates. You get an in-game currency as you play, and you can use that to open crates. And when you open these crates, you get emblems for your gearbox. And your gearbox, basically, you can equip those emblems, and they'll give you an advantage in battle. You can see them at the bottom of the screen right now. Basically, in-game, you get shards from killing enemies and from various, loot crates and stuff like that. That's not me subtly indicating you should buy a loot crate, by the way. It's just gearbox, loot crate, treasure chest, whatever you want to call it. You get shards. You can use those to get your abilities. Those abilities usually have either a mild positive effect, like for example movement speed plus 7% or something like that, or they have a really good positive effect with a little bit of a negative effect associated with it, like a trade-off, like maybe plus 20% attack speed but minus 15% attack damage or something like that. And in a way that's really cool because it gives you customization, but I'm a little concerned. I was trying to see, I thought our quest marker was down here, or like there was somebody that I could resurrect around here. They're opened, the way you get these is from chests that basically have kind of like a CSGO, Valve dopamine-infused slot machine mechanic to it. You buy them for in-game currency, you click on it, and then the slot wheels kind of rattle into position and you try to see if you get something good. There is a little bit of like a gambling component in that, and I don't mean gambling in like this should be tackled by the Nevada Gaming Commission perspective or something like that. But let me just put it this way. I wouldn't be surprised if there is kind of the opportunity to buy in-game currency for real money at release, and then, Counter-Strike Global Offensive your way to some kind of awesome, emblem or, passive ability that you can buy in the match, if that makes sense. I don't think that means it's pay to win at all, because you do have to buy those actually in the match as well. It's not like you actually just get plus 20% extra attack damage for having this awesome item. You have to invest the resources that you get in-game to actually use it, and I don't know if that microtransaction model will actually exist. I'm just saying the foundation is there, and it maybe wouldn't surprise me, which can be a little bit problematic considering that this is going to be a full-price game at release. But at the same time, weigh that with the fact that this is kind of how, I don't want to say how the industry is going, but there are other offenders for that is what I'm trying to say. And again, take it with a grain of salt because that's just a hunch for me. It's no guarantee there. But yeah, apart from that, and even, including that, I had a really good time playing Battleborn. I think with my plans for playing it on release basically boil down to whether or not I can convince other people to play it. It's one of those games where if you have a crew of people that you can play it with, it seems particularly fun. Again, the single player, not necessarily my cup of tea, or not as compelling as the multiplayer. I would rather compete against other enemies, but if you're into that, Gearbox trademark style of humor and gameplay, this pretty much seems to have it. Again, I can't harp on the Borderlands similarities enough, as you can probably guess from this. This is a Gearbox game. That is not Aliens Colonial Marines. which is also for the best. And it's fun to play. I think it's the kind of thing that's going to be much more fun with friends than it is with nobody, but it could be good with random strangers as well. So I went into the Battleborn event, I don't want to say pessimistic, but let's say guarded. And I came out actually being like, you know what? This is a good time. I had a good time with it, and I'm definitely more intrigued of it in advance of its February release. So again, you can go check out the closed technical beta and sign up for yourself. I'm not sure if it's guaranteed entry or anything like that, and apart from that, the game comes out on February 9th, I want to say. February 9th, 2016, so actually fairly close. And it feels polished. It felt good. We didn't really encounter much in the way of bugs. Certainly nothing that was out of the norm for a pre-release event like this, especially a couple of months in advance. It feels like a polished product. Cautiously optimistic. Thumbs up. Thanks for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed the episode. If you did, click the like button. It helps out a great deal. And of course, subscribe if you want to see more in the future. And if you want to check out more on Battleborn, there will probably be some kind of various promotional links in the video description below. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.